All right, thank you to everyone who is joining us this evening. My name is Paige Buttles at the high school. I get to work as one of the counselors, and I am the college career counselor. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. This presentation is recorded. So just so that you guys know, as if you decide to type in things into the chat, we welcome that, and we will just respond via chat. Please know that obviously nothing that this is being shared, and so try not to get too individualized, but general questions are welcome. We will share our contact information at the end as well, so that anyone who has questions, we would welcome that there. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Just a little bit of oversight before we do is we're not getting into the weeds here on all things college, just kind of going over big picture, common questions and topics that many families wish to know about. And we are welcomed by 5 highly esteemed college admissions professionals. We have public, private, small, big, community college. So representing all different types of college and doing that very intentionally, knowing that colleges are all kind of looking for different things. So I'm trying to provide many insights here today. All right, so I'm gonna accept a few more people in here before I move to the next slide. Let's see, what did I do? Admit all. Okay. All right. So we are going to start by having our college representatives introduce themselves and give a little insight to their institution, common majors, scholarships, and how to apply. So if we could just go through kind of alphabetically here, or I'm sorry, just how we have it listed here. Tyler from Illinois State, could you start us off and tell us a little bit about you and your institution?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me today. Like Paige said, my name is Tyler Myers, and I work for Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois. To give you a little bit of background about my institution, Illinois State University is kind of a mid to larger size university. We have about 20,000 total students, including our graduate students. In terms of cost, we are approximately $28,000 for in-state students, but this cost is before financial aid, scholarships, things like that. So that cost can definitely be brought down significantly. Some of our top programs include education, business, nursing, cybersecurity. We also have really strong agriculture and fine arts programs in our curriculum, and a little bit of exciting news, but we will be adding some engineering majors this upcoming fall semester. So for those of you with junior and senior students, you could be having students in the first graduating classes of those programs. In terms of our scholarships, through the admissions process, we do award scholarships based on academic merit, so GPA. We also have scholarships available for students based on volunteer hours. And then we do offer a small legacy scholarship for students with parents, grandparents, step-parents who have attended ISU as well. If students are looking to apply, our application does open every year on August 1st, and students are able to apply just directly through our website or through the Common App. Thank you.
All right, I think I am next up. My name is Mary Ward. I'm Assistant Director of Admissions for Purdue University. So Purdue is a land-grant public institution for the state of Indiana. We're located in West Lafayette, Indiana, which is only about 2.5 hours from Chicago and an hour from Indianapolis. There is a shuttle at O'Hare, so for students in the Chicagoland area, it's easy for them to get to campus by catching the shuttle. We are a large campus. We have about 40,000 undergrad students, but the average classroom size once you get into your major is between 25 and 35 students, and student to faculty ratio is 14:1. We do have 11 colleges and over 200 majors at Purdue. Most popular majors are going to be engineering. We are ranked top 10 engineering program in the country. Neil Armstrong is a Purdue graduate. Computer science, which is in our College of Science. It's not in our College of Engineering. Nursing, which is a direct admit. Daniel School of Business, top 25 business school in the country. And we also have a professional flight program. So we are the first institution to own and operate our own airport. We do have our own fleet of planes, so you can become a commercial pilot. We also have 2 professional schools, College of Pharmacy, College of Veterinary Medicine, and we also offer an undecided major as well. So students apply using the common application. If there's two majors you're interested in, you can list them both on the application, a primary and a secondary major. You would be reviewed for both and could be admitted to either one. So we are a direct admit program, meaning you are applying directly to a major and starting in those classes freshman year if you're admitted. Our application process is holistic. So we're looking at everything on the application. You can self-report your classes, grades, rigor, or you can have your high school send a transcript. And we do expect and want all students to send test scores. We do have an early action November 1st deadline. So you want to apply by November 1st. You're being reviewed for merit-based scholarships and admission. We release decisions on January 15th. This is not binding. You have until May 1st to make a decision. Our tuition, we're proud to say that it has been frozen now. We just got approval for the 13th year. So our out-of-state tuition is $28,800. Room and board's about $11,650, so around $40,000 for everything. We do offer other scholarships besides merit-based scholarships, like departmental scholarships and some other academic matching tools that we're going to let you know about other scholarships outside of Purdue. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juwan Pollard, and I am the Associate Director of Admissions for the University of Chicago. As far as U Chicago, we are a medium-sized private research university located on the south side of Chicago in the Hyde Park neighborhood. We have over 17,000 students total, but over 7,500 undergraduate students specifically. Some more popular majors for us on campus are English, Global Studies, Biological Sciences, and Economics is a big one for us. In terms of, I thought that was for me. So those are our majors, I should say. And we do meet full demonstrated financial need. And we do that with no loans, all grants. So the loans that you would usually receive on an aid package, we replace those with additional grants. So if your household income is less than $65,000 annually, then we guarantee to give you enough financial aid to cover the full cost of attendance. So that's tuition, room and board, and fees. And if your household income is less than $125,000, then we guarantee to give you enough need-based aid to cover the full cost of tuition. We do also offer a number of merit-based scholarships as well. We award those based on achievements in academics, leadership, and in community service as well. We are on the Common App and on the Coalition app. We're not picky about which one you apply on. Either is perfectly fine, but please don't apply on both. Only one application is just fine. And we also, similar to Purdue, we do also do a holistic contextual review for your application as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to the magical Julie Nelson.
Well, thank you, magical Juwan Pollard. Again, my name is Julie Nelson. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admission at Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are a medium-sized private Jesuit Catholic institution. That's a lot of adjectives, but that just means we are about 5,000 students. Our campus is located in the city of Cincinnati, but not downtown. So we're about 10 minutes from downtown. Xavier's best known for our direct entry College of Nursing, for our Williams College of Business, particularly our marketing, our finance, our business analytics, and our entrepreneurship programs, which are all ranked in the top 50 nationally. We also have a dynamite biomedical sciences program. So if you're thinking about going on to med school, that's a great way to prepare. But in addition to those, we have about 90 majors. So lots to choose from, including some excellent programs in education, in the fine arts, including film and musical theater, psychology, as well as sports marketing and sports management. Even though we're just 5,000 undergrads and your average class size is about 20, we are part of the Big East Conference and compete at the NCAA Division I level. So for all of you Bulldog fans who want to continue that school spirit into college, by all means, check out Xavier and be able to continue to cheer on some excellent teams. We are also part of the common application. So if you do choose to apply to Xavier, you can do that anytime after August 1st of your senior year. We too take a holistic approach. So as we're reading applications, we're looking at everything that you send us, except for your test score. We are test optional. And so you have the choice of sending that test or not. And I know we'll talk about that more in depth as the presentation goes on. We are very generous with merit scholarships. This year, those range anywhere from $23,000 to about $30,000 per year. All of our merit scholarships we do right at the time of admission, so that you do not have to fill out a separate application for those. But we do have some additional scholarships that could tack on top of that initial merit award, including a $1,000 grant just for visiting campus. So plan those campus visits, and I know we're going to talk about that too. And if you think, gosh, you look familiar, Julie Nelson, it's because I am a Batavia parent too. My daughter Charlotte is a sophomore. So if you see me around and you're like, wow, that lady knows things about college, ask me questions in the aisles at Trader Joe's. I'm happy to help. Alec, passing it on to you at Waubonsie.
I live near Batavia, so I was thinking you look familiar too, Julie. Anyway, before I go ahead and get started, so my name is Alec Mushong. I'm an admissions advisor at Waubonsie Community College, and we are your community college. At Waubonsie, I assist all students that are coming from Batavia High School, so it is my role to assist students in getting started in their first semester. Waubonsie Community College has a main campus in Sugar Grove, Illinois, which is just about 15 minutes from Batavia High School, so certainly not too far away from any of you, but we do have 4 total campuses, a couple in Aurora and one out in Plano as well, all with their own kind of different emphases and programs offered. Our top majors that are offered at Waubonsie mostly revolve around students who are interested in transferring to other colleges and universities. Given that we are a community college, many students are looking to get started with us and complete an associate's degree with aims to go ahead and transfer to another college or university, like one of the fine institutions here today, to complete out a bachelor's and potentially beyond. So we have students most commonly looking to transfer for things like business, psychology, criminal justice, nursing, biology, general science. But some of our top programs that students will go ahead and attend Waubonsie for are things like our nursing program, where students can get their RN licensing within 3 years, and also our automotive technology program. So those are some of our top programs offered at the college. As far as cost goes, for students that are looking to complete an associate's degree in a 2-year time frame, our tuition runs just over $4,200 per year. So the average cost of an associate's degree, a full 2-year degree at Waubonsie, is going to be just over $8,500. Our total size, as far as students go, is 11,800 students, just over 11,800 credit students. As far as applying, our application is just done at waubonsie.edu. We are not on the Common App, so you won't find us there, but our application is free and can be done in about 10 minutes on our website. And as far as scholarships go, our main scholarship pool is through our foundation scholarship. And the way that those scholarships are awarded, the criteria vary. So some of them are based on residency, some of them are based on merit, but you will be submitting an essay alongside of those. And really what is being considered is that essay provided alongside of your scholarship application. So yeah, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about getting started at Waubonsie.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. And we started with that again on purpose because we want you to see how colleges have different things to offer, and like how every college has something a little bit different, and how important it is to talk with our college representatives. They're here to help our students learn about colleges and all things college, which is why they volunteered as tribute tonight to talk about college with you. Before we move on to our big topics for today, just want to remind you that at Batavia High School, we bring these college representatives to our school to talk with students. Alec comes and visits us once a month. That is on our BHS College and Career calendar, so you can know when Alec is coming, and is accessible through our during all lunch periods. And we are bringing in about 40 colleges through the spring semester. We host what are called college panels. So just during 1 hour, students can learn about 10 or 11 colleges, and those are different colleges, just like these lovely people with us today to talk about their institutions. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you guys to check out if you want to register for those panels. They are for our juniors and seniors. So just so you know, that's what we're looking for. And then we do have a BHS college dashboard, which I'm sure many of you have seen. I'm going to put that in the chat too. And it kind of has our go-to resources, so you can check that out after tonight as well. So today we are going to start with, where do we start? How do we start learning about colleges? So we're going to start by answering these 2 questions. So Julie's going to kick us off and say, what is the first step to researching colleges?
Thanks, Paige. This may sound a little counterintuitive when you're like, oh, how can I research a college? Here's what I know. I've been doing this. This is my 31st year doing college admissions. And I know that by this point, even the sophomores are probably getting pelted with information about colleges. We love to send you emails. We love to send you all kinds of stuff, about our schools, about our programs, all the fun pictures. Actually, it's all the same 5 pictures. Well, I'll cop to that. It's the building with the clock or the tower or the dome. It's the professor and student working together. You've seen them. So here's what I will tell you. It's not the best course of action to just say, okay, what colleges do I know? And write down the list. And then, okay, here's the finite list of places that I know. I always tell students, before you start to look at a critical eye with any sort of, research, you really need to know yourself. And I think that's sometimes a hard thing to do. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do this big philosophical dive into who am I? But here's what I want you to do. For the students, think about what you're good at already. You know that answer. That's easy, right? Like, here are the subjects that I really like. Here are the things I like to do. Here are the places where I excel. And not to say like, okay, well, I'm good at math, so I have to be an accountant. Separate what am I going to do with this skill from what is the name of the job I'm going to do. Because I think right now, especially as sophomores and juniors, you've got some great time to explore all of the options that are out there. And so don't limit yourself by just saying, this is the list of colleges and this is the list of majors, but to really say, who am I as a person? How do I learn best? You have a really awesome opportunity at Batavia in that you've got this block scheduling, which is very similar to the way you're going to learn in college. But for some of you, you already know, like, I'm definitely a person that goes to my teacher when I have a question, or I stop by after class or during late start on Thursday. I'm able to come in and ask some additional questions. Some of you are like, I could sit in the back of the room and take my notes and do fine on the test. Is there a right answer or a wrong answer? No, but the way you learn and the kinds of support that you need to learn is also really important in this college search. Because every school, you heard us all talk about how many students we have on our campuses. Every school is going to expect a little bit different level of your own self-advocacy as you go through this process. So think about how you learn best. Think about what you like to do outside of class. One of the things I always try to impart on students is that when you're in college, you're used to being at Batavia High School from 7:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. When you get to college, you're probably only in a classroom about 3 hours a day. For some of you, that sounds like heaven. For some of you parents, you're like, oh my God, that sounds terrifying. But here's what I'll tell you. College is absolutely about what you're learning in the classroom, but it's also about the relationships you make and the things you're able to do outside of the classroom, whether that's extracurricular activities or internships or volunteering. All of those things play a huge part in how you find that next path once you're done with college. So think about what you like to do. And when you start researching colleges, see if those colleges have those opportunities as well. Parents, same thing. Like, we know our kids sometimes better than they know themselves at this point. What do you know about them to be true in terms of what kind of support they might need, where their interests lie, where their strengths are, those qualities you see in them that they haven't quite developed yet? What kind of a school is going to help bring out the best in them? So that once you get those kinds of things on paper, and maybe just a few ideas about what college actually means to you, then you can start the research. Because I think without having a finite or a defined sense of the qualities that you're looking for or that you already possess, we're just going to send you all the cool, shiny things. And you might say, oh my gosh, like, this school's got a really beautiful track, or this school's got a really beautiful cafeteria, or this school's got a whatever. But if that doesn't make any difference to you in the grand scheme of things, you're just kind of being swayed by the shiny. So think about what makes you you. That's concrete things. And then from there, you can really start to have those conversations of, how am I going to find this school that's either a good match, or even better, at what Joanne's going to talk about, how to find that right fit.
Thanks, Julie. And perfect transition to Juwan. How do we find what a good fit is?
Yeah. And so absolutely, like, I appreciate that these questions are on the same page because Julie did a lot of the legwork for me. But when you think about fit, one of the easiest ways to kind of look at it, and I'll talk about some other factors as well, is you really want to think about kind of three categories or three like buckets of fit. And that's academic, social, and financial fit. So when we're talking about an academic fit, of course, yes, we're talking about majors, right? Like for those of you that are pretty locked in or pretty confident in what you want to do career-wise or major-wise, do they have my major on that campus? You also want to keep in mind that when it comes to majors, sometimes like the name that you may know that major under may be a little bit different. Like for some schools, it's pre-physical therapy. Some schools, it's sports, therapy or sports medicine or a number of different things, just as an example. So really paying attention to, does that school have my major as like kind of a base level for fit? But even beyond like, majors in the academic sense, like you also want to think about what types of experiential learning opportunities do I have? Like what kinds of hands-on opportunities do I get to explore those academic areas? So whether we're talking about research, whether we're talking about like internship opportunities or just like career guidance and career readiness, or for those of you that are not 100% sure what you want to major in yet, like what is the advising like for undecided majors? Like how are you all going to help me figure this thing out? And even if you have some ideas, or maybe you're crazy like me and a crazy Gemini and are just like, I can go in 15 different directions, making sense of like, okay, out of the majors I might be considering, are those represented? And or what other majors are there that I may be able to switch to? And or once again, the indecisive Gemini piece, how easy is it for me to change my major, right? So those are some of the things to think about in the academic fit. As far as the social fit, you really want to think about the general vibe of campus. And oftentimes I know we're going to talk about visiting campuses later on, but sometimes you get the vibe of the campus by actually physically visiting. But like, how are the students? When I walk around campus, do they seem pretty welcoming and happy? Does everyone seem miserable and depressed? Like, what is the general vibe of the campus? Also, what kinds of extracurriculars are available on campus as well? If there's a specific thing you're interested in, I know when I went to college, for some reason, I really wanted to go to a school with a fencing team. And I did go to a school with a fencing team. Never joined the fencing team though. But but that was one of the extracurriculars that, like if I thought about starting over, and the beauty of college is it's a choose your own adventure and you get to decide, students, you get to have a lot more agency in where you go from here and what kinds of institutions you enroll in. And so really thinking about those extracurriculars, like what can I do outside of the classroom setting? Who can I hang with? What are the things to do outside of the classroom? Also looking at the location of the college as well. What is there to do outside of the campus? Are there things to do for fun, or is everybody just on campus chilling like Monday through Sunday? So, and also what kinds of supports are on campus. That can be related to health supports, whether is there a health center on campus? Is there a pharmacy on campus or nearby? Mental health resources and supports, centers for underrepresented groups. Do they have a multicultural center? Do they have an LGBTQIA resource center? Do they have a women's center? All these different things that you want to consider for the social fit. And then for financial fit, of course, it's exactly what it sounds like. What kinds of, financial opportunities are available to me? Is this an affordable option for me? And of course, that's a little bit hard to tell maybe in August of your senior year, but really exploring those websites when you're doing some of that research that Julie spoke on, being able to really like do some research on that financial aid, on the financial aid of that website or of that institution. Sorry, I've been giving presentations all day. My brain's fried. But in terms of that financial aid, seeing what kinds of merit-based scholarships are available, what kinds of need-based aid is available, maybe even looking at a net price calculator, which every institution is required to have, where you can put in your parents' financial info and get an estimate, emphasis on estimate, on how much you'll be receiving in need-based aid potentially from that institution. And of course, there are a number of other different factors to consider, whether we're talking about size, medium, small, large, very large, public or private, location, how far away from home do you want to be? Do you want to maybe be a little bit closer to home, or do you want to go a little bit further? Then, but also thinking about things like, do you want a liberal arts education, and a number of other factors that go into really thinking about fit and how that ultimately comes into play. So.
Thank you, Juwan. And as we transition, we're going to talk a little bit more about fit. And we start with this because this is really the time of reflecting on who am I and what kind of institution is going to support me. So Mary, could you tell us more? What should students look for in a college?
So this is going to be quick because pretty much what you've already heard between Juwan and Julie. I think visiting a campus is definitely important so you can see if you can see yourself there. And we are going to talk about visits here in a little bit, but everything that was just covered as far as academic fit, I think is what you're looking for in a college. Academically, socially, financially, academically, what was already covered, finding a school that has your major, but thinking of if you change your major, is there another major there that you like? I always like to use my son as an example. He went to a college and realized he didn't like the major and then had to switch colleges because there was no other majors there that he liked. So finding a college that has a variety of majors that you like, because about 50% of students do end up changing their major. Looking for that academic support, like things that were already spoken about. Do you want a big school, small school? Do you want to, if you're going to California, which is great, the weather's wonderful, but how often are you going to be able to get home? You have to consider those flights. Or do you want a college where you can just drive home on the weekend if you decide you need a break from college? Looking at things again, socially, as far as, big campus Division I sports or small campus where you can get involved in sports yourself or at least support sporting events. Looking at costs, I think, is also a very important factor when you're looking at schools and what you should be looking for. But don't be afraid of what we call the sticker price, because colleges offer scholarships. So just because price may seem high, a tuition, definitely talk to the admission counselors, find out about scholarship opportunities, how you applied for those, what kind of scholarships do they offer. So I think all those things combined is in conjunction with what was just already talked about. Thanks.
I think a lot of that information can be found on the website, but also talking with our college representatives is super important here, whether it's in person at college fairs or when you go visit or when they visit our high school. But you can also pick up the phone and call to get that information quicker. Some of the best ways to go about determining a college fit, just to kind of go a couple other things to consider. I like this website called coursava.com, where students can do a values card sort. I have these cards in my office too, if anyone wants to do it, but you can do it online for free. And that kind of just gives you some ideas in prioritizing what is most important to me in a college. And then we can start to determine which colleges have those things so that you're applying places that you can, learn and grow and find your people. And then as far as your career path, we talk about this a lot freshman and sophomore year in some of our lessons. But if you're still unsure, which career is the best fit for you, I think talking with adults who know you well, whether that's parents or, teachers or counselors or whatnot, and trying to see how you fit into the world of work. And then trying to see which college majors might be of interest to you. I've been meeting with a lot of students lately and just Googling the name of a potential college major and reading about what classes they would take at that college, and reading if usually there's one or two sentences that describe the course. So if a student today told me she's I'm interested in social work and architecture, and those are really different. So we read about them on colleges' websites. I'm which one are you more drawn to? And she's yeah, definitely architecture. She knew just from reading as to where she really had no idea walking into my office. So we have some tips that we can just kind of guide you along. I don't have a magic ball, but through conversation, it usually gets clearer by the time you leave my office, and all of our school counselors can help with that too. All right, so those are just some additional thoughts. Tyler, can you tell us how, if a student does know what they want to major in, how do they find the college that's best for them, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of goes back to what's already been said, especially Juwan kind of hit on academic fit when it comes to a college. First and foremost, it's really interesting that Paige brought up architecture, because architecture is not a rare college major, but it's not as common maybe as some other ones. So my first piece of advice is just to consider the availability of your major. So like programs like architecture or aviation are not going to be available at every single college that you're considering. So it's important really to narrow down what colleges can reasonably accommodate your career choice, your college major choice, that kind of thing. Like the only schools that I know right now that have aviation as a major is Purdue, obviously, but also Lewis and SIUC down in Carbondale. So that's really, those are three very, very different schools. So that's going to bring in other things like social and financial fit too. So it can definitely help narrow down the list, but it's just definitely something to consider. Another thing that I would also consider when looking at different colleges for your choice of major is to consider the competitiveness of the program. Earlier in the presentation, we threw around the word direct admit. And I think for us, it's just like a second language at this point. But direct admit is very much like a university college term. And what that basically means is that students are considered right from the jump for that program. So for example, Illinois State University, we have a direct admit nursing program. So when your students senior year are going to be applying to schools and they're applying to ISU, for instance, for nursing, we're going to consider them for admission into not only the university, but also the nursing program on that same application. And it's important to know that distinction because there are some schools out there where you are applying to what's called like pre-nursing or something like that, where yes, you gain admission to the university for your first 2 years, but then you have to reapply for the actual nursing program for your actual clinicals and things like that. So it's important to really know what programs are offered as direct admit and which are not. And that's another time to come talk to us, talk to your counselors, just to confirm and make sure of that. Another thing I would consider too when choosing your different majors, I promise I'll wrap it up soon. I know I tend to ramble. But certain programs at certain universities have different admission criteria than maybe the other ones do. I'm going to use myself as an example again. So for our nursing program, while we may be test optional and we don't require an SAT or an ACT score, we do require a personal essay from the student as a part of the admissions process into the nursing program. That essay is not required for any of our other programs. So it's important to know what you have to submit and for which programs at which schools you have to submit that to. So those would be a couple of things that I would definitely be on the lookout for when it comes to choosing the right majors. And I mean, if you know anyone at the schools that you're considering and the programs that you're considering, Illinois State University has a reputation for putting out a lot of teachers. So we get a lot of students coming and telling us, my teacher recommended me to you guys. So that's another thing that I would recommend when choosing the right major. I don't want to take up too much time, so I will forgo.
No, thanks so much, Tyler. One thing I would add too is like I think sometimes like families will ask me like if my student or if I want to study psychology, where should I go? And there isn't like one answer to that. College fit is so much more than just what you major in. It is that academic, social, and financial fit. So just because you want to be an engineer doesn't mean you have to go to Purdue. And just because you want to be a teacher doesn't mean you have to go to Illinois State. You're going to be really well prepared there. But if you don't want a big institution, that's not going to be a good fit for you. So just another thing to add on there from my own perspective. All right, transitioning topics to talk about college campus visits and college fairs. So we're going to hit it back to Mary. Do you have any tips for us going on college campus visits? And then someone also asked, how do we know if they're accessible for handling various needs?
Yeah, so I think trying to plan ahead, number one. So you want to, if you can, if it's possible to go during the, school year, so you can actually see students on campus walking around and really get a feel for what it's like on their campus. Find out what kind of visits they offer. Is it a campus tour of the whole school? Can you sit in on a specific information session about the major or the college that you're interested in, so you can get more information about that? Talk to current students as you're on campus. Ask them what they like and don't like about their campus. Definitely, stop in at the Office of Admissions to talk to admission counselors as well if you have additional questions. You want to see if you can sit in on a class. Sometimes universities will let you sit in on a class so you can kind of see what it's like. You want to keep notes, because the more schools you see, after a while, they all start kind of running together. So taking notes about things that you liked and didn't like about campus when you were visiting. And don't be quick to judge. Maybe the weather isn't the best on the day that you're visiting, so don't necessarily write off a school because of that. Or if you sit in on a class and it happens to be a really boring professor, there's probably another day where he's going to be amazing. So really looking at everything. As far as accessibility, if you're meaning like disability resources or things like that, I think all campuses probably offer something like that. Again, connecting with the Office of Admissions, I'm sure they can direct you to the right department if you need something like that.
Thanks, Mary. Julie, can you tell us, do you have some suggestions on how to approach college fairs to get the most out of it? We do have 2 upcoming college fairs in April that are on our college and career calendar, just as a little tidbit of information. Okay, Julie.
Yeah, I was actually going to tee this up by saying I have 3 that I'm going to encourage you to attend. March 13th, there's a college fair at North Central College. It is not just to learn about North Central. There'll be about 200 schools there. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. On April 4th, we'll be at South Elgin High School, about 120 to 150 schools. That's from 6 to 8. And then on April 6th, which is a Saturday, we are hosting the inaugural Illinois National College Fair, and that will be at Moraine Valley Community College in Palos Heights, so about an hour-ish from Batavia. And that's, like I said, on a Saturday morning from 10 to 1. So again, about 200 schools that you can go and visit. Now, that said, that's 200 schools and it's 2 hours. How do we do all these things? Well, every fair that you might want to attend, there will be a list of schools that will be in attendance. So if you think back to, 2 or 3 slides ago when we said start to do some research on Naviance, which all of our students use, you can start to generate a list of colleges that might be a great fit and a great match for you. So do that first, then go and see what schools are coming to those fairs. Get your highlighter out and highlight those schools that you definitely want to talk to. Could you talk to all 200 of us? Probably not. But can you talk to quite a few of us? Absolutely. So highlight those schools that you're interested in most first. Pro tip, college fairs were always lined up alphabetically. I say this as the girl who represents the school who is always the last table, because my school starts with an X. And families always get back to me and they look around and they're like, oh my gosh, this is alphabetical. Yeah, it is. But here's what I will also tell you. Because it's alphabetical and because we've all been trained since kindergarten that A comes first, families often will wait in line for 20 or 30 or 40 minutes at those A and B and C schools waiting to ask one question, when they could have, if divided and conquered, left dad in line maybe for that school, and everybody else start at the end of the alphabet, start in the middle. Sometimes all the university ofs are clustered together. So start somewhere else. If the line is long, know that, by the end of the fair, it'll be me that's busy and everybody at the beginning is not. I would also say it can be overwhelming to walk into that gym or that community center and look around and be like, I don't even know what to say to these people, because all of us, that are here tonight, plus our friends from the other 195 schools, we're all standing behind our table. We've got our banner with our school name on it. We've got some brochures. We've got some stickers maybe, but how do you broach that conversation? Honestly, the easiest way is just to walk up and introduce yourself. And when I say yourself, I mean the student should introduce themselves, not the parent say, oh, hi, I'm, Mary Beth, and this is my daughter, Katie. Like, let Katie do the talking. Katie's going to be the one that goes off to school. And honestly, ask the question then, hey, I'm not super familiar with your school. Where are you located? Or how many students go to your school? Or do you have a psychology major, whatever that might be, start the conversation. Because if you haven't already guessed, admission counselors are professional talkers. Like, this is what we do for a living. So once you break the ice and once you show me that, you know, where you are in the process, whether, hey, I know a million things about your school or I know nothing, we'll start sharing some great information. And I would also say that if there are schools that you've never heard of, don't just walk by that table at the college fair. If there's something about it that seems interesting, or, hey, I think our neighbor goes there, just walk up, grab a brochure. Just by talking to that admission rep, it's not going to be binding you to that school for all eternity. It's just really a chance for you to find out some more things. And who knows, you might find a school that you've never heard of before that is a really good fit. So go in with an open mind. Do not be afraid. Start that conversation and be ready to learn some things about some really great places.
Thanks, Julie. So let's say we have an idea of what we're looking for in a college and we're interested. So Joanne, how do I let a college know I'm interested? And how do I know if a college tracks demonstrated interest? And if you could explain that term a little.
Of course. So in terms of showing a college you're interested, honestly, if you're taking all of the advice that's already been given, then the beauty of like showing a college you're interested in is that this is a two-way street, right? Like if you are signing up for a campus visit, which we've already talked about, if you're signing up for, you know, their mailing list, which you can find on admission websites where you can sign up to get emails and obviously the snail mail mailings as well. You know, that's how you show interest. Also reaching out to admissions counselors, whether that's via email or whether that's at a college fair where you get a chance to actually like talk to them face to face, give them your name. We try to remember as many names and faces as we can, emphasis on try, but overall, like having that face to face time with an admissions counselor is another way that you can show your interest. Also contact cards. So, you know, similar to like at those college fairs, when you start going to those fairs, you'll notice that certain institutions will have a contact card for you to fill out and then give back to that admissions counselor. That's also how you sign up to get on the mailing list. But in a lot of ways, that's how you show your interest as well, is by being essentially entered into their system to receive more information. And lastly, pre-college programs as well. For any institutions that offer like summer pre-college programs, even if you apply to them and don't get admitted to them, they at least know who you are, right? So that's another way to kind of show interest. Now, in terms of tracking demonstrated interest, so demonstrated interest, it sounds exactly, it's exactly what it sounds like. So when it comes to tracking interest, certain institutions, you know, basically we'll take all those different things, right? Like you signing up for the visit, you filling out that contact card, etc. And essentially we'll track how many times you've engaged with that specific institution. And when you apply to that institution in the admission review process, that may be a factor that is considered, is how much have you engaged with this institution, right? Like sometimes institutions kind of have a mindset of like, well, if you really want to be here, like we want to see that you've engaged with us in some meaningful way, whether that's physically visiting, whether that's filling out a contact card at a fair, etc. So they really want to see what kind of engagement you have with that institution. Keep in mind, not every institution tracks. You can ask an institution, even at that college fair, that's the one question you can ask those admissions counselors is, do you all track demonstrated interest? So for example, University of Chicago does not track demonstrated interest. And so the other thing that you want to keep in mind is in this era of advanced technology that we are in, not only is it just filling out a card so we can see that you're interested or, you know, obviously visiting campus, but even when you're signing up for that mailing list, I would add the caveat of like, now when you get on that mailing list and start receiving emails, make sure you open those emails is step 2. Because for institutions that do track demonstrated interest, they can technically see when you've opened the email or not opened the email. So that's another factor, right? Like, so if I've emailed you a ton of stuff for the past few months, but when it's time for you to apply and I see like, oh, well, you signed up to get on the mailing list, but you literally have opened no mailing from us. So clearly you just signed up just to sign up. Then that's a factor, right? That may be considered. So when you know that you're dealing with a school that's tracking demonstrated interest, keep in mind, like it sounds really scary. It's not as scary as it sounds, but like we can see when you've opened the email. We can see that you opened the email from Florida. Like, we can see a lot of different things about how you engage with how we're interacting with you as well. So, but once again, not every institution tracks, but in general, showing a college that you're interested, even if they don't, track interest, it could still be beneficial. Talking to that admissions counselor could still be beneficial for you. Going to visit that school could still be beneficial for you because, like I said, this is a two-way street. Because you never know. You might see Julie for the next, 2 or 3 years. And then when your application actually comes through, she's like, oh, I remember that person. Like, I've seen them at fairs and interacted with them at several different events throughout the school year or throughout the last few years. So just kind of keep in mind when it comes to how you show your interest. Of course, there are a number of different ways to show interest, but all those ways are organically embedded into you researching and finding more information on the best fit college for you. So.
Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that piece of information. I always love when families hear that. And we always tell students to create a separate email address separate from their BPS 101 so that they can manage just their college application, something simple like their name-ish, you know what I mean? Nothing too inappropriate there. We're going to move on. Topics, transitioning. We have 2 slides dedicated to college applications. So this slide and then another. Tyler, could you start answering here? What are different admissions requirements that students should pay attention to? And is earlier always better?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably going to repeat myself. I apologize in advance. I'll try not to. So the different requirements that I would definitely pay attention to kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how different majors can have different requirements. Similarly, schools in general might have different requirements. As many of you might know already, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of universities and colleges temporarily paused utilizing test scores in their admissions decisions, which was great depending on who you were. But in probably, I've already seen this happen, but a lot of schools are starting to put that requirement back on. So that is something that I would pay attention to, especially as you're considering your schools, as well as the different majors that you might be applying to. Some universities might also require supplemental materials like letters of recommendation or personal statements. Some of them might be optional as well. And there are appropriate times, I would say, if those materials are optional to utilize them. I always recommend for my students who maybe had a tough like freshman or sophomore year and their GPA isn't quite where they want it to be. I never will say that that's an automatic no, because we want to get to know you really as a whole student. We review our applications holistically, which means that we also look at things like personal statements or test scores if students elect to submit those. It's just a way to enhance scholarships for us to get to know you a little bit better. For us at ISU, it's not going through a machine or anything like that. Applications are being reviewed by our employees. So that's definitely something that can work in your favor. I'm going to say this again, I'm sorry. Every institution is different. So when we're talking about the question, is earlier always better? It can depend. And this is when starting a dialogue with admissions counselors can work in your favor. So you know whether or not applying early or anything like that will be in your best interest. For Illinois State, for example, earlier is better. We have more scholarship opportunities available earlier on in the fall. Some of our programs close rather quickly due to capacity limits. So it definitely can work in your best interest to always apply earlier in Illinois State University's case. But if you're ever questioning that, please let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to help guide you and give you the best advice we possibly can to make you the most attractive candidate for our schools.
Thanks, Tyler. Alec, can you tell us, how do colleges review Batavia High School students' weighted GPAs? Do they recalculate them to become unweighted for admissions? And is it different or the same for scholarships?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Paige. So mirroring actually a little bit of what Tyler said, and I know everybody here has said this evening, but all colleges are going to be reviewing things on different bases. So some are going to be reviewing weighted GPAs, some are going to be reviewing unweighted GPAs, some colleges may not review your GPA at all. So it's really going to depend on the institution that you are applying to and how that is going to be reviewed. If you're asking in terms of how that's reviewed at Waubonsie, we are looking at unweighted GPAs for purposes of placement and for scholarships. So that is something that we recalculate. For purposes of admissions, we have an open enrollment admissions policy, which means that no GPA is required in order to be admitted. And since scholarships have a variety of different options, not all different scholarships are merit-based. So even when we are unweighting GPAs, not all scholarships are merit-based. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well, is regardless of the institution that you're looking at, not all scholarships are going to be solely dependent on your GPA, whether that be your weighted or unweighted GPA. So definitely just an important thing to keep in mind, that you'll want to make sure that you're asking around at different institutions how they are reviewing GPAs, because just because we are looking at GPAs on an unweighted scale at Waubonsie doesn't mean it's going to be the same at every school that you're looking to get started at.
Thanks for explaining, Alec. And I'm so glad we have people explaining, other than me, that every college is different. You have to ask them. So that is affirming, if nothing else. So Juwan, our next question is for you. Could you tell me, beyond good grades, what else can a student do to stand out in the admissions process?
Yeah. So ultimately, each of our institutions, and every institution could fill their entire class with just the valedictorians and like those top academic performers, right? But it's about more than that. It's all the other stuff that really gets us excited about you as a person and joining our community. And so you really want to look at your application almost like pizza, you know? And so it's like your grades are like the cheese, like that is the overall given. As you know, as I believe Tyler brought up, you know, certain institutions are test optional, certain institutions are test flexible. For University of Chicago, we are test optional, and then starting next admission cycle, we have a no harm policy as far as testing goes, meaning that if you choose to submit that test score when we're reviewing your application and we find that that test score doesn't benefit you in the application process, we're going to throw that score out. So we're not going to consider that in the process. So we're going to start that next year. But similarly, like those grades are pizza, you know, are the cheese on the pizza, but everything else are the different toppings, right? Like, and I'm gonna say this in a different way, just because it's already been said so many different ways. But similar to how every single institution, or similar to how every single person prefers something different on their pizza, every institution will prioritize something different in terms of like making students stand out. But in general, when it comes to standing out, there are a number of different things to consider. So firstly, your extracurriculars. What are you involved in? And making sure to list everything that you're involved in, both like within the school setting and outside of the school setting, that I think a lot of students kind of forget about. You're so focused on maybe highlighting some of those clubs that you're involved in at school. You didn't mention you're a Girl Scout. You know, let me know if you have any cookies, by the way, but like you're a Girl Scout, or, you know, things that you're doing out in the community, or even at your local church, or even at your home, whether it's like taking care of your younger siblings, translating for, you know, parents or grandparents, whatever the case may be. So don't be afraid to put any and everything that you're involved in, both within the school setting and outside of the school setting as well. In that same vein, for extracurriculars, don't think that you have to be in 25 different things, that you need to be president of 50 different things and running yourself ragged. It's better to have like quality over quantity in that regard. Even if you're only involved in like maybe 2 or 3 things, if those are 2 or 3 things that you can very passionately talk about, either how you've contributed to them or how those organizations or clubs have contributed to the community that they're serving, then that goes a much longer way than just like a laundry list of things that you showed up for like 1 or 2 meetings for and never showed up again, right? Like, so really having quality extracurriculars really does help you stand out. Another way to help you stand out are letters of recommendation. You want to make sure that when you're requesting those letters of recommendation from your teachers, that you ask for glowing, emphasis on glowing letters of recommendation, because your teachers can be honest. I think every admission counselor here can attest to that. Teachers can be more honest than maybe you assume they would be about how you showed up in that classroom setting, in that academic setting. But those letters of rec is also how you stand out. And a glowing letter of rec can sometimes go a very long way from a teacher or a counselor or a mentor or any letter of rec that you choose to submit. One of the last big things that is a very important factor in terms of standing out are essays. So you want to keep in mind that institutions are not having you write supplemental essays and personal statements just for our help. We're not having you do it just as a fun English assignment to do with your application, right? But those essays are how we really get to know you as a person. And so it's very, very important to really think critically about those essays and what topic you want to talk about, what kind of tone, like what techniques, those 3 T's, if you will. So you really want to like put some time into those essays because that's also how you stand out. That's also how you show an admissions counselor who you are, because we don't know you personally, right? Like, and so those essays give us a window into, what you value, and how you think as well, and to like assess whether or not you're a good fit for our institution. So there are a number of different factors to help you stand out. The key is just to comprise a strong application overall and really think about what kind of story you want to tell throughout your application, whether it's through your extracurriculars, whether it's through your essays. Really thinking about, especially with those essays, like what parts of yourself do you want to emphasize? Like whether it's your intellectual curiosity, your resilience, if you've had some challenges, or your leadership abilities, right? Like, so really just thinking through like what values do I have and how do I want to highlight those as well. So
Great insight. Thank you. Juwan, we have you for the next one too. When looking at weighted classes such as AP Honors, dual credit, is there an advantage to taking one over the other?
So I will also say every school is different. Just throwing that caveat. We can just stamp that on every single one of these questions just for general knowledge, but not necessarily in terms of an advantage of taking one over the other, at least in the college application process for U Chicago specifically. But like I said, it varies. I think most institutions, though, in general, want to see that you've challenged yourself in something beyond the regulars level coursework that's offered at your high school. And so ultimately, institutions want to see that you challenge yourself within the context of your high school. So don't think that you have to track down IB coursework if your school doesn't offer it. If they offer AP or honors or dual credit, it's okay to also sign up for that. We just want to see that you've taken a rigorous curriculum throughout your college career or throughout your high school career as well. So I think ultimately the benefits, of course, for those AP courses and those dual credit courses is the transferability for some of those courses where you can knock out some of those college credits early. But ultimately, as far as the college application process, I wouldn't say, at least for U Chicago, that there's an advantage of like one over the other per se. What I would say for those AP courses, it is usually beneficial for you to actually take those AP exams as well, just so we can see how you performed in those courses. And obviously that's how you get the college credit too. So.
Thank you. Mary, could you tell us, do you have advice for students applying to more competitive fields or certain majors, pre-med, engineering, computer science, etc.?
Yeah, so the first thing I like to say when we're talking about competitive programs is to understand that competitive majors many times don't have enough seats for all the qualified applicants. For example, our flight program, super competitive. We probably get 1,500 plus applications for 90 seats. So realizing that you could be a very qualified applicant, but we just don't have enough seats to admit everybody. I definitely encourage students to check school profiles for those majors, making sure that you fall within the profile for that competitive program, that you're meeting, you're in the middle 50% for GPA or test scores or certain classes that you should take in high school. Also encourage students when you're applying to competitive programs to apply to a variety of colleges. Like you've heard, every college is different. So it may be a competitive program at our institution, but maybe not as competitive somewhere else. Also looking at maybe similar majors. So for example, at Purdue, computer science is a competitive program, but students can also do data science, artificial intelligence that still has a lot of that software programming that may be of interest to them. If you're admitted to a major, but you really have your heart set on another one, a competitive program, talk to the admission counselors about how hard is it to switch into a different major once you're there. So if you get admitted into data science, but you still want to get into computer science, is that possible? And what's the process to do that?
Thanks, Mary. We're going to switch over to scholarships. I know we talked a little bit about scholarships already, but Alec, if college cost is an important factor, what's the best way to get financial aid and scholarships?
Yeah, great question. So this first thing that I'm going to say is so important, regardless of where you are going to school. And this is something that you might have heard Mrs. Buttles talk about before, your counselors, maybe your parents. Everybody needs to make sure that they are applying for financial aid via the FAFSA or alternative application, if that's something that you're eligible for, as you are getting ready to graduate from high school. So in the state of Illinois, for all of you that are graduating from BHS, you are required to complete your FAFSA as a graduation requirement. So it is super important that you are making sure that you're doing your FAFSA. So this is not, I'm sorry, let me take a step back. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This is how you apply for things like grants, loans, federal work study. So it is really important that you are applying for financial aid during your senior year. If any of you have older siblings right now that are in their senior year and doing their FAFSA this year, you might have heard a little bit about this year's FAFSA, a few hiccups and snags related to the current FAFSA. So I'm sure all of us here are hoping to see a lot of that smoothed out when a lot of you who are sophomores and juniors will be completing your FAFSA in a few years. But most important thing that anybody here can do is going ahead and completing your financial aid applications. By doing these applications, one, I think, common misconception that I hear a lot, and maybe the same for some of the other representatives here today, a lot of students think that if they apply for financial aid, that they're required to use that financial aid that they have been offered. So whether that be a loan that maybe they don't want to accept or something along those lines, a lot of times students think, well, I'm not going to be eligible for financial aid, so if I do the FAFSA, I have to use a loan, which is certainly not how it works. You always have the choice at the end of the day about what kind of aid that you are going to go ahead and use. So it's really important that you're at the very least applying for the financial aid, and then you get to make the decision at the end of the day about what type of financial aid that you would like to accept and use. And then as far as scholarships go, I know some of the other representatives here today have talked about when you complete your application, you may be considered for some scholarships at that point, or you'll want to go ahead and make sure that you're connecting with the admissions representatives at the schools that you're looking at to find out about different scholarship portals, how those applications work, all of that kind of stuff. I know for us at Waubonsie, you're not considered for scholarships at the time of applying, so you'll have to apply for scholarships after you've submitted your application. So it works different at every school. Sometimes you'll be considered for some at the time of application, and then more after you've applied and you can seek more out. So it really is a little bit of a mix when it comes to the scholarships. But if there's one thing that you take away from this, please make sure that you are completing your FAFSA or alternative application if ineligible for the FAFSA.
All right, so next we're going to hear from Julie Nelson. Julie, can you tell us how will parents get an idea of how much college will cost for their students? And also, how can we find quality, affordable colleges?
Well, there's a lot of great tools out on the internet page for families to use. And one of those is called a net price calculator. And so every school that receives federal financial aid funds, which is pretty much everybody, has to have on their website a net price calculator. And so what this can do for families is give them a better idea of what that difference between the actual cost of attendance or the sticker price, whatever you want to call it, is and what their student might receive in financial assistance to make that option a little bit more affordable. So the easiest way to find those net price calculators is really not to go poking around a school's website. That might be a fool's journey for sure. Go to your favorite search engine. I was going to say go to your Google, but maybe you don't love Google. Go to your favorite search engine, type in name of school, net price calculator, and it will pop up. And these net price calculators are often in two parts. Part one is going to ask some very pertinent questions about your student's student's academic situation. So it's going to ask about grade point average, if a school still uses test scores as part of their scholarship, consideration, it will ask about test scores. And so that part of the net price calculator will show you how much merit aid your student might receive if that school does indeed give merit aid. The next part of the net price calculator is also very student specific, but this part asks about the family's financial situation. So this part of the net price calculator can determine whether or not you as a family will receive federal or state financial aid in the form of grants or loans or work study eligibility. So by the time you fill out this whole net price calculator, you have a pretty good estimation of what your out-of-pocket cost will be. And I know all of us get asked, well, of course you're going to make this look really great so we get excited about your school. I always say, let's unpack that a little bit. Sure, we would love to show families like, oh, it's only going to cost you whatever, but who does that serve if we make up some unrealistic number, right? Because at the end of the day, we want you to find that school that's the best financial fit for you. So we are going to be as accurate with our net price calculator as you can be with your information that you're plugging into that net price calculator. So that's one way to check it out. The other way that you can really find some great information about what a school might cost for a family like yourself is to go to a site called College Navigator. College Navigator is part of the Department of Education's suite of information. And College Navigator not only has great information about the colleges, all those facts and figures that we've been talking about in terms of fit, but it also provides more. It's not as specific as a net price calculator, but it certainly will give you a range of what that school might cost based on a family's adjusted gross income. So you get a pretty good idea of, if we're in this band in terms of what we bring in as a family, this is about what this school will cost out of pocket for us. So if you're not ready to make that leap or you don't really have the information you need to plug into a net price calculator, I would absolutely have you take a look at College Navigator to see if, just to get some ballpark measures. And I think this whole idea about affordable colleges, that's part of this fit proposition as well, because you have to have a value to whatever it is that you are purchasing, whether it's a house or a car or a sweater. But this is college, and college is a little different because you can't put it in your pocket, right? So again, using all these fit qualities and then balancing out what am I getting for the price that I'm going to pay is really how you find those schools that are the best value for you, not just the cheapest. So that's something I would consider as well as you go through. And sorry, I get very passionate about financial aid and I just went off. So I hope you found some nuggets of goodness there, and I'll send it back to Paige so she can talk a little bit about what do you do once you actually get those financial aid packages.
And I wanted to answer this one because this is something that I love doing with students. I have a couple thoughts other than me as the answer here, though. But when students bring in their financial aid award letters, it is my pleasure to help them, put them side by side. And I have a worksheet that I've gotten through the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, which stands ISAC for short. ISAC, they are great and free help for families in Illinois with a lot of things. And one of their things is helping students understand their financial aid packages as well. So me or your school counselor can help you. The Illinois Student Assistance Commission can help. And then the college representatives at each of those institutions, should you have questions, whether they can help you or their Office of Financial Aid. Those are all some great places to get started. But when students are trying to compare apples to apples, that's just something that we would love to do with you as well. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that. All right, we're going to shift topics here, talk a little bit more about test optional. So Julie, how do we know if a college is test optional?
Well, hopefully by now you've met your Julie, your admission counselor that works at that school. But I would say the easiest way, there is a website out there called fairtest.org. So FAIRTEST.org. And that is an up-to-date list on all of the school's testing policies, whether they are test optional, test blind, require testing only for scholarships. So I would say use that as your guide to this whole process because it is updated regularly. So if schools change their ideas, you can have the most current information, but also reach out to your admission counselor.
And Tyler, how do we really know for colleges that say they're test optional, but they'll take scores if it helps? Like, how do we make sense of that? And then secondly, students will ask a lot like, okay, for admissions, they say they're test optional, but what about scholarships? So help us understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Julie had probably one of my favorite lines that I've ever said in any of these panels, and it's one that you'll probably hear many times, but ask your admissions counselor. We really are the experts, quote unquote, for our school. So we're going to be able to provide you with the best answer and probably the most complete answer as to test optional policies and things like that, because test optional can really mean different things at different universities depending on their requirements. So best thing for you to do is to get that line of communication going with your admissions counselors. Especially if you're one of those students that's a little bit better speaking one-on-one instead of going and searching on the internet or anything like that, because some information might be outdated. A lot of universities went completely test optional, not required, during the COVID pandemic. So you might have had an older brother or an older sister that didn't have to submit their tests, but you might unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how good of a test taker you are, you might have to submit that SAT or ACT score. For us at ISU, this is why I kind of mentioned speaking with an admissions counselor. ISU's policy is a little different than maybe what test optional might mean at another school. For us, you do not have to submit a test score if you do not want to. That will not impact your admission, and that does not impact your scholarships for us. In fact, we ask you on the application, do you want us to consider your test scores when making an admission decision? And you can click yes or you can click no. So the ball is entirely in your court when it comes to our test policy. And that's definitely going to be really good information for you to know as you're going forward in the application process. Another thing to consider too, some universities might be test optional for most of their programs, but they might have one or two where a test score is required. So that's another thing to ask about with your admissions counselor. And for scholarships, I'm very sorry, I'm going to repeat it, but checking with the school to determine whether that can be used for your scholarships is also a good idea as well. I rambled a little bit. I do apologize, but I mean, party line for me is just double check with your admissions counselor if you have any questions or if you're unsure.
Well, and I appreciate that insight, Tyler. And I know we just emailed yesterday or the day before about a student. So sometimes students will ask me if they should submit their test score or not. And sometimes I have an answer and sometimes I'm like, gosh, I don't know. Let's just ask. And so I emailed Tyler on behalf of a student just the other day. So oftentimes at the high school, we serve as a first line of defense or support. I think is probably a better word to use in this case. But then oftentimes I just ask the colleges as well, unless I already have the information and I'm super sure about it. So use us as much as you can. A couple other questions that were submitted, I was hoping that we could go over. Alec, what type of what type of support is out there for students who might struggle?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paige. So I think what's really important to do is for students to really think about the fact that a lot of times students might know that they're going to struggle even before they get to college. Students might already recognize resources that they're utilizing at their high school and might realize that they are going to have they may have those similar struggles when they get to college. So I think what's really important is being very open and honest with the admissions advisor that you're working with at the respective school to let them know what types of resources you're currently using. For students that feel like they need additional help in their classes, connecting with your admissions advisor to talk about what options there are for tutoring or academic coaching. For students that might have an IEP or a 504 plan, making sure you're getting connected with the appropriate access center or disability resources center for any kind of accommodations that are necessary. I think sometimes students might know that they're going to need those different resources in college, but they feel like they don't want to ask about it, or they don't want to talk about it, or they might feel like there's a reason that they wouldn't want their admissions advisor or admissions counselor to know about those resources that they will need. But at the end of the day, all of us as admissions advisors and admissions representatives are here to make sure that students are as successful as possible in their college journey. So it really is important that students are being open and honest and advocating for the different resources that they need, because all of us have all of the different institutions students will look into will have boatloads and boatloads of resources. And there are so many people employed at all different colleges and universities whose sole job it is to make sure that students are getting connected with resources and have access to the resources they need to assist them with any of the struggles that they might have. So I think at the end of the day, all of the people that work at colleges and universities that students consider attending, at the end of the day, we're all here to make sure that students are successful. So whether it be a tutoring center or a TRIO program, if a student has a TRIO or student support service program, any kind of academic coaching, or I mentioned an access center, different inclusivity centers, just making sure that you're connecting with the admissions representatives at the school that you're looking to get started at, and voicing the fact that you might be interested in those things. And for students who feel like they're not going to struggle in college, at some point or another, there's going to be some kind of struggle that comes along. So it's not necessarily just a student who has a feeling that they will need the resources right off the bat. There are tons and tons of students like myself when I was a student in college, and I was like, I'm not going to need any of these resources. I didn't use any resources in high school, so why am I going to need them in college? And it's a totally different ballgame. So all of the resources are there for students who think they might need the resources, and they're also there for the students who think that they might not need the resources, but inevitably do use the resources. So there are tons of different opportunities out there for students that come to Waubonsee. I mentioned TRIO for first generation, low income, and students with disabilities. We have our Access Center. There are counseling opportunities for personal and crisis counseling at Waubonsee, and then of course at different universities as well, academic support. So really whatever students need, the resources are available, whether students look at Waubonsee or any university or college to get connected with the resources necessary.
Thank you so much, Alec. And I think our last inquiry is going to be towards Mary. What other advice might you have?
So easier said than done, but don't stress. So we understand that this is overwhelming, can even be confusing. Sometimes I say it's almost like a foreign language. We're talking about FAFSA super scoring, but as you've heard many times, we're all here to help you through this process. So none of us are here to sell you on our college. We truly want you to make the best choice for you. So ask us questions, meet with us when we come to your high school, go to those college fairs. If you don't know what to ask, it's okay. We can tell you about our schools and let you know if we think, resources or majors that we have that you may be interested in. The main thing is just continue to be a good high school student, challenge yourself in high school, be involved in your high school, your community, do what you enjoy, have fun being a high school student, because you're going to have choices. This is only a few colleges right here today presenting to you, but there's thousands of colleges across the US and around the world. So as long as you're doing what you need to do in high school, you're going to have choices as far as college, whether it's community college, four-year institutions. It's never too early to start researching schools or visiting schools. So make sure that you are taking the time to do that and be organized. As you found out from just us talking, colleges have a lot of different things, a lot of different deadlines. So keep track of all that information. And again, if you're confused, you have your high school counselors, you have us. I'm here to help you through that process.
Those were great thoughts. Thanks so much, Mary. So this is our contact information, our college reps, and of course at the Batavia High School, we have many counselors here to support you as well. So thank you so much to our college panelists for joining us. We really appreciate your insight. They're experts in all things college, as well as their own colleges, and just such a fantastic resource. So make sure, like Mary said, to meet with them at college fairs and when they come to visit. I'm going to thank you so much and have a good rest of your day.